On my 75th birthday, a landmark I hadn't even planned to acknowledge, my sister Vivian looked at me from across the long dining table and smiled. "Delilah," she said, her voice clear and carrying, "tell me, are you enjoying your $500,000 trust fund?" I stared back at her, confused. The words felt incomplete, like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't assemble. Slowly, the question finally registered, and I felt a tight knot forming in my chest. "What trust fund are you talking about?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. My son Reggie dropped his fork. My daughter-in-law Chelsea went pale, like a sheet of plaster. They both looked as though they wished the polished marble floor of their own suburban estate would simply open up and swallow them whole. Then, Vivian turned her gaze on them, using that firm, no-nonsense tone I knew from her corporate life. "What did you two do with the money?" she demanded. The silence that followed wasn't normal. It was heavy. It was guilty. It was the kind of silence that screams the truths no one wants to hear. That night, the air in the house didn't smell like a birthday celebration. It smelled like a goodbye, the kind you sense coming but refuse to name. I was sitting at the head of the table, as usual, feeling like little more than an ornament among the expensive dinnerware and crystal glasses I never owned in my own small apartment. 75 years old, 75 years. And my son Reggie had insisted so strongly on celebrating my birthday in his opulent house that I couldn't refuse. Not because I wanted to be there, but because a mother never stops searching for her children's affection, even if it costs her dignity. My name is Delilah Ames. I was born in a neighborhood where women were taught from girlhood to be quiet, to obey, to smile, even when everything inside was breaking. I married young. I had 2 children. I was widowed 5 years ago, and since then, I've lived alone in a cramped 1-bedroom unit in a place called The Heights, surviving on a small Social Security pension that barely covers my groceries. Reggie lives in a 3-story house with a sprawling lawn and a pool. Chelsea, my daughter-in-law, wears designer clothes and leases a new SUV every 2 years. My grandchildren attend private preparatory schools where the monthly tuition costs more than my rent for 3 months combined. I always believed they just worked incredibly hard, that they deserved it all, and that I had no right to ask for anything because I had already done my part by raising them. But that night, when Vivian spoke those words, something inside me finally broke. Or perhaps it simply woke up. Vivian Ellington is my younger sister. She's 70 years old and lives 2 states away. She's successful, running her own consulting firm, traveling the world, wearing tailored suits and French perfume. We don't see each other often, maybe once or twice a year. It's not because we don't get along, but because our lives took completely different paths. She built an empire. I built a family. Or so I thought. Vivian arrived that night with a gift wrapped in gold paper and a bottle of fine wine that surely cost more than my month's worth of groceries. She gave me a strong hug like always. She told me I looked good, though we both knew it was a lie. I was thinner, more tired, dimmer. She sat next to me and started talking about her trips, her projects, and life in general. Reggie and Chelsea offered strained smiles from across the table. My grandchildren were upstairs in their rooms, probably glued to their phones. The conversation was superficial, awkward, filled with long pauses that no one knew how to fill. Then, Vivian poured herself more wine, looked at me with that focused expression she always had when she was about to say something important, and said, "Delilah, I've been curious about something for a long time." I nodded, having no idea what was coming. "Are you enjoying your $500,000 trust fund?" she asked casually, as if asking about the weather. The world stopped. My ears buzzed. $500,000, a trust fund. I didn't understand a thing. I looked at Vivian as if she were speaking an entirely different language. "What trust fund are you talking about?" I asked, my voice so small I almost didn't recognize it as my own. Vivian frowned. She looked straight at me. "The trust fund your husband set up for you before he passed. You're not using it." I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. My husband, my late husband, a trust fund. He never spoke to me about it. I never saw documents. I never received any money. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I don't know anything about that, I murmured, feeling the sting of tears in my eyes. Vivian placed her wine glass on the table with a dry thud. Her face hardened. She was no longer the kind sister who arrived with gifts. She was the relentless businesswoman who tolerated neither lies nor betrayal. She turned to Reggie and Chelsea, who were frozen like statues. "What did you do with the money?" she asked in a voice so cold it seemed to drop the temperature in the room. Reggie cleared his throat. He tried to smile. "Aunt Vivian, I think there's a misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Vivian cut him off. "I was present when your father signed those documents. I was a witness. $500,000 in an irrevocable trust for Delilah, with clear instructions that she was to receive monthly payments for life. Where is that money?" Chelsea stood up so quickly, her chair nearly toppled over. "I need to go to the bathroom," she mumbled, practically sprinting from the room. Reggie stayed put, opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. His eyes avoided mine. And in that moment, I knew my sister was telling the truth. I knew my son had robbed me. I knew that everything he had, everything he flaunted, everything that made me feel like a burden, had been built with my money. "Mama," Reggie began, using that whiny child's voice he used when he'd done something wrong. "Let me explain." But I raised my hand. I didn't want to hear it. Not